Perhaps I'll just start off by introducing the book a little bit. It's, yes, The Girl in the Red Coat, published by Faber. My background, I was brought up in quite a bookish household, and I was talking earlier, part of that was I was brought up in the church and with the Book of Common Prayer, and had very sort of, I always had access to books and to very rich language around me, and that's something now I feel very fortunate about, very lucky. But I think at the age of 18, I don't think anyone thinks, right, I'm going to go off and be a writer, you know, it just doesn't seem like a possibility. I lived in a very sort of rural community. So I got very confused in my sort of university years and ended up studying history of art for some reason. I can't quite fathom that, even myself. And then I always wrote fragments and short stories, you know, and was an avid reader. Then had a family, and obviously, you know, involved with all that and working. I worked in making documentaries for a long time, because obviously, you know, you get caught up in all this. So it wasn't really until my children were older and were starting to leave home, go to university, all that sort of thing, that I kind of turned back to it, and I thought, actually, it's now or never. I need to, you know, am I going to be frustrated for the rest of my life because I want to write, or am I going to actually plunge in and do something about it? And I signed up for the MA at Aberystwyth University. I was looking for a career change anyway, and it was actually, I was looking at two things. I was looking at a floristry course or an MA in creative writing, so I'm quite glad I went the way I did. Once I started that, I think it was just meeting other people that were interested in, wanted to write, and were passionate about writing. And in a way, it was a relief, like meeting a sort of your own tribe in a way, and people that sort of felt the same way as you did about language and words and stories and all that sort of thing. And it kind of encouraged me to put in for the Rhys Davies Prize, and winning that was such a huge, I don't think I would have written this if I hadn't won the prize, because it just helped my confidence so much. And I started writing this book while I was in doing the MA, and it started off, I've heard a lot of writers talking about this. It's often strange how things start, and it started with the image of a little girl standing in a forest wearing a red coat. And somehow I knew that she was lost in that image. I didn't know why. And in a way, the mission of the book was to find out why. And a couple of weeks later, I sat up in bed and wrote the first chapter straight off, which didn't come from her, which surprised me. It was actually her mother's voice talking about how she'd lost her daughter. And we're not quite sure what's happened or why. And it kind of, it all went from there. And that first chapter I edit enormously. I edit a lot, and that chapter has actually unusually not changed very much from that first writing of it to how it's actually in the book. So that's where the kind of idea came from. Now, the title, there was quite a lot of talk with the publishers about the title. They were a little bit worried about it because there's a lot of titles with girl in the title, Gone Girl, and girl with this, and dragon tattoos, and all this sort of thing. And there were lots of discussions about changing the title, and I was quite keen on retaining it, and that's what we did. You know, hopefully that was the right thing to do. I'm not sure, and you know, they were good and went with it in the end. But it came to me, the title came to me, and I think it comes from a few different sources. I always found that image of the girl in a red coat, a little girl in a red coat, quite a potent image. And I watch a lot of films, I'm very influenced by films, and there are two films, Schindler's List, where the background obviously is black and white, and the only spot of colour is this little girl, and she's a sort of symbol of the universal sort of suffering and marking the individuality of the Holocaust. And the other one was a film which I think is from the 1970s with Julie Christie and Donald Sutherland called Don't Look Now. And I saw it when I was about 12, 13 probably. Probably a little bit of a racy film to see at that age, but it always stayed with me. It was just that the image of set in Venice, this little girl disappearing down alleyways in Venice wearing a red coat. And it was only after I finished that I kind of looked at the book and I thought, actually, it's Little Red Riding Hood, and the story is a little bit Little Red Riding Hood. She's lost, she strays off the path, and she becomes threatened by various wolves, you know. Going back to sort of childhood, I think these things go very deep. These influences that you absorb as a child are really important. And yeah. So there are a few things in the book. It's being billed as obviously it is about a difficult subject, the missing child, but I would say it goes in a direction that you wouldn't expect it to. And I heard somebody say recently that all books about missing people are crime stories, but they're also love stories as well. And I would certainly say that that's true of this book. It's really about the relationships between mother and daughters. It's also about healing as well, in a way that everybody in the book is trying to move themselves in however sort of cat-handed and ill-advised ways to try and reach some sort of point of healing. But I thought I'd read just a very short little bit of it, which is about the sort of terrible moment that I think as a parent you always think about and hopefully never happens, where you realise that you turned around in a crowd and you realise that your child's no longer there. So this is Beth, who's 8-year-old Carmel's mother. And she's taken her as a treat to a storytelling festival. It will be like the day in the maze, I told myself. I'll run round this field looking, scared witless, but we'll find each other eventually. The fog had grown cold and dense, and I kept stumbling on empty plastic bottles and bumpy ground. Carmel, I yelled at the top of my voice. Where are you? I kept yelling into the fog, but it never answered. It just sucked up my voice into its blankness. I wanted more than anything to catch a glimpse of that red, like a poppy standing proud in a cornfield. But there was just a jumble of colour, made milky, as if looking through a wedding veil. I thought I'd go to the entrance and ask for help, an announcement on the tannoy, or to the St. John ambulance in case she'd fallen over and was there right now having a plaster put on her knee, while someone in uniform was saying, all done, now then, let's find your mum. People were getting fed up and wanting to leave. The field was emptying. They were all at the entrance, a temporary arch made out of plywood, with shapes cut into it to look like battlements. So I had to push past them. I knocked against the bodies without caring, muttering, I've lost my little girl, over my shoulder to all the watchets. Several people asked if I was all right, but I couldn't stop to answer. I was too intent. Carmel, where are you? Where are you? The ticket offices next to the arch were empty. the organisers probably guessing that no one would arrive so late in the day. So I had to find my way back again, all the time shouting, "Carmel, Carmel," till my voice was hoarse. I found my way back into the tent where I'd last seen her. It's too soon, I told myself. It's too soon to panic. Stop it now. The trestle table where she'd stood was half empty, many of the books sold. I'd had the idea of asking the man with the till if he'd seen her, but there was nobody there now. The thought came to me that the remaining books left out like this could so easily be stolen. "Carmel," I called, "where are you?" A man put his hand on my arm. "What's the matter, love?" "My little girl, I can't find her." I realised my eyes were wet and stopped for a moment this time. "Oh dear, dear, you need to get to the main tent. They'll help you. She's probably waiting for you there." "Yes, thank you. Where is it?" "Ask one of the staff, they'll tell you." I rubbed at my eyes. "Don't worry, love," he said, "you'll find her. Mine were always getting lost when they were young." I took his advice and went outside to look for staff. He's right, I thought. There must be an official tent or a place for lost children. But the fog was lacing the air now, so it was hard to see the tents anymore. Panic gripped my insides again. Even among so many other people, I started to feel alone in some kind of new and terrible reality. So, if there's any questions?
A question on an observation. You said you started to write this when you were in the end Naples, and quite a few years back now, you were taught by Siguro, and he did exactly the same. He wrote Remains of the Day when he was an FA student, and he was saying it allowed him the space to do it. You know, there's a busy life, you have the space to do it. But my question really is, you say you started the first chapter in the Naples. Did you know the ending when you started? You know, was it there and you knew you only had to write it?
Yes. I did a reading with Ishiguro a while back. Actually, he was in the back of the room, and that was the most terrifying night of my life. So it's funny that you should mention him. But yeah, I very much, almost straight away, and I'm working on another novel now, and it was similar, had the ending almost immediately, which obviously I don't want to give away. So in a way, it was kind of it was a journey working towards that end that I knew was going to happen. But I was very clear, there was only one way that I wanted to end it. Yeah.
What title are you setting on?
What I'm doing with the next one is, which I've just numbered the chapters in this one, but with the next one I'm titling every chapter, and in a way it's a kind of extended essay in trying to find a title. And there's 2 or 3 contenders at the moment, but so I'm not sure.
In a book that we spent quite a long time just deciding the title was appropriate or not very appropriate, but it's really...
I think titles and covers are one of the hardest most controversial things of the whole process, and it has. I mean, I will say I had the idea of the title before Gone Girl, and I don't think it was that unusual using girl in the title anyway. But there were quite a few reviews that sort of said, oh, you know, jumping on the publicity bandwagon of putting girl in the title and this, you know, all this sort of thing. And it wasn't true at all. It's sort of almost the opposite, really. It was something that the publishers were, you know, a little bit worried about. So no, I think titles are just difficult. The cover was interesting as well. I think that I'm in favour of just being so good to be with as a publishing house. Just generally, the editor was amazing. This was the second idea for the cover. The first one was really nice as well, and it was little footsteps on a red background, sort of disappearing, which I really, really liked. But then they came up with this, and I just loved it straight away, and I think they've done a fantastic job on the cover.
Yeah, quite like that too.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to miss.
Can I ask you, will it be printed in paperback then eventually?
Yes, the paperback is coming out, I think, in January. That's the plan at the moment, yeah.
Do you have, do you have to sell so many copies of the hardback before it's printed in the paperback?
No, I don't think so. I think it's more or less sort of designed when you're published, that you're going to have a hardback run and then have a paperback run. That's my understanding of it as well. I don't really understand publishing. Well, I could be honest. It seems a bit of a dark art to me, but that's how I understand it anyway.
Excuse me, what would you say is the hardest thing, writing a book or getting it published?
Probably both. Sorry, it's not a very good answer, but
It is a good answer.
yeah, I think it's writing, you need a really sustained, to write a novel is such a sustained, I was working at the same time as writing it, and it probably took me about 3.5 years, because I used to get up and write for a couple of hours in the morning before I went to work and things like that. This one is because I'm at home at the moment, so it's taking me less time than what I'm working on at the moment. But and publishing, I would always say I think everybody's route is different. That's what I'm beginning to understand with publishing. Everybody I meet, they have a different story to tell about how they were published, you know. And I think there's a sort of feeling that some people might have that it's about connections, and I just don't think that's true at all. I think it's about the work and finding somebody who loves the work and is willing to champion it and take it on. And I mean, I was a bit worried that I was being, you know, I was older for my first novel, and I thought, God, you know, is that going to put people off? And I've got to say, it's not been an issue. As far as I know, anyway, they probably don't know.
No, it's not. Can I ask you about your contract with the... Do you have to sign up, when you sign up to the company like paper, do they say, right, okay, you're going to publish this, but I want 3 novels? Are you under pressure then to do the next one, or are you just freelance, you just do a one-off?
My contract is for 2 books. 2 books. So this was the first one, and the one I'm working on is the next one.
Do you have a time limit then for the second one?
Yes, no, I do, but there's a certain amount of flexibility in it, but now it's sort of got cast in stone because they have to look ahead, and they're talking about publication in 2017, so obviously, you know, you have to, yeah.
And then it's up to you and the company whether you renegotiate the contract and go on over there.
Yeah, I guess so. After these 2, as far as I'm aware, you know, but it's a bit of a learning because it's all new to me as well, I suppose.
You know, I can understand that some writers will want to keep writing and writing.
Yes.
There's no problem.
Yes.
But then others will dry up.
Yeah.
Don't want to.
I think now, because in a way I have always written. It's just, you know, I think I'll continue writing now, whatever happens. I feel quite certain of that, you know, in one form or another.
Did you choose favourite first, Kate, or did you approach other publishers?
It wasn't me, it was my agent that did that, and she approached a number of publishers, and texted me to say, I've just had a meeting with the editor at Faber and Faber, and she said, I've just got a really, really good feeling about this one. I think you should go for this. She said she's so passionate about the book that I think this is the one for you. So yes, and it was a funny time actually, because my father was ill in hospital at the time down in Pembrokeshire. So I was there, and I was getting emails through that obviously you can't, there's no signals, and I went outside and I was getting these emails, and you know what it's like when somebody's in hospital, you're sort of a bit all over the place anyway, so it was all a bit kind of like, you know, it was a bit of a strange time, you know, like the best of times, the worst of times sort of thing. Yes.
Thank you.
Paperback is coming out quickly after hardback. Why are books published in hardback? So why not put it into softback?
Yes, an interesting one. I think sometimes they are, actually. I think particularly in sort of the crime genre and romance genre, they often are. It is a bit of a tradition, isn't it, that this hardback, paperback thing. I think the idea is that hardback is possibly a bit more like a gift, or and some people do like collecting hardbacks as well, you know, like dealers and things like that would always collect hardbacks rather than paperbacks. So I suppose it's just a system that works, and they decided to... It doesn't quite work. It doesn't quite work like that, because the way it is that you get an advance, and then you everything gets earned back to pay for that advance. If that makes sense. Yeah.
What do you use about Kindle? Do you still get royalties for Kindle?
Yes, I do. I get royalties for Kindle, and the ebook sales have been very good actually on this. I don't actually read on a Kindle myself. I've never quite made that jump. I'm working on a computer screen all day. I like having a break from the computer screen. I actually love books. I like having them, which is why my house is about to fall down, because I've got so many of them. And I know what would happen. I'd read it on a Kindle, and then I'd think, oh, I like this. I'll go out and buy the book. I know what would happen. So, but I did go on holiday at the beginning of the year, and we were staying in an apartment on the 5th floor, and there was no lift. And I took the suitcase with me, and I literally, it was on wheels, but I couldn't lift it up the stairs at the bottom. And so my husband started carrying it. He said, what have you got in here? About 12 books. And he was like, oh, you've just got, you know, talking about Kindles, all the 5 flights up the stairs. But I don't, maybe one day I'll make that jump. Yeah, maybe just for holidays, exactly, but I haven't quite got there yet. I just buy it twice.
Maybe I was old fashioned, but I just can't. Someone brought a Kindle around my house, so I could try it. I've always liked books.
Yeah.
And I tried to read a Kindle, and I couldn't get on with it.
No.
I've read books.
Yeah, I think a lot of people still feel the same. And there was a lot of talk when Kindles came out that books were no longer going to exist anymore, and it just hasn't happened.
No.
It really hasn't happened.
CD is really good.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember the typist or the author, but I can't see the cover.
Yeah,
That's very true.
yes.
You know, you say about Girl, but that just has stuck in because of Gone Girl and all the others. Just
Yes.
like publicity, because I think it is.
So it's not a bad thing then.
I
That's,
just knew the book I've seen it advertised somewhere.
Yes.
So when I was invited here, I thought, oh, I thought it would
yeah. Oh, right. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, oh, that's interesting. Yes. Yes, that's true about the title and the author.
Yes,
that
so what you read here from I think, oh, because you don't look
Yes.
at the cover.
Yes, that's true.
I can tell you the story, but
And also, I don't know if there's something, and I only thought about about this recently when I was looking at my husband's Kindle, is something about the shape of a page, the page itself. It's, in a Kindle, it's like a long stream of text, isn't it? And I don't know why that should be important, but somehow it feels important.
I have to recover it all from it, so it just shut off the back of it.
That's funny. No, I understand that, but yeah. So,
I'm just going to ask you how you feel about today's young children reading, because it's so difficult to get children to read a book.
well, if we continue closing our libraries in the way that we're doing, then I don't think there's a lot of hope for them. It's a subject I feel very passionate about, and there's a library in Cardiff called the Rose Library that's destined for closure. I was at protest there a couple of weeks ago, and I just think, well, you know, what hope have we got if so, you know, keep our libraries open.
How was it gone?
Really?
Yeah. And the space is there, and nothing in the space.
It was in the
Right,
Eleven Centre,
right,
and they just closed it. And
Yeah.
just the space left. It didn't have its own building.
right.
It used to years ago.
Why pick on that? Of all the things, why pick on that? It's just a subject. If I start talking too much, I'll start getting very angry.
Well, actually, Pontyclun Library has been taken over by volunteers, and it's run by volunteers.
Yes. Now, I've never been to a volunteer-staffed library, and I think it's great that people are willing to
really
take
works.
that over. Whether that's sustainable in the long term, it's hard to know.
Yeah, well,
It's hard
it's
to know.
early days yet, but it's been
Yeah.
going about a year now.
Yeah.
No, maybe more than that.
There's lots of, I've been touring around, I've been to a couple of libraries that actually are funded by the local community, fundraising in the local community. I went to one in Suffolk like that, that's part financed by funding in the local community, but it was a very wealthy community. So, and they had a big bequest to start that off, so, I mean, it's different again. But, yeah. I try not to talk too much because I start getting very irate. But I think it's terrible. I just think it's terrible.
When's your next book going to be out?
I think it's going to be the beginning of 17. Yeah. At the moment, that's when it's planned for.
Is it a sequel or is it completely different?
It's not a sequel. It's got some parallels, I would say. It's a kind of coming of age tale. It's got a sort of quite a feisty young girl at the centre of it again, and it's got quite a sort of healthy dose of the supernatural in it.
Will it be out in time for our next arts festival?
When's your next arts festival?
2 years' time.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you find the editing process a long process?
Yes, it was very long. The editor, Sarah, who's just, I was so lucky to get her, she's absolutely amazing. Very young, American woman. And she estimates it's between 3 months and a year that she needs to edit a book.
Yeah.
This one was in between, it was 6 months. Going back and forth, and I was a bit worried about it, but I found the whole process really interesting. And people say, don't you get upset because things were being changed? And it wasn't really like that. It was more like she was developing what was already there, I would say. And we used to send each other notes back and forth. And it was a bit like having an interesting conversation with somebody. So for me, it was actually a really positive process. But I don't know if it's always like that. It's very based on personalities, I think, and whether you know, if you're on the same wavelength.
Well, I always get 3 of everything, and by the time I get to the 3rd one, I'm exhausted. And they're never very different, but that seems to be the way they
Right.
work, that I get
Yeah.
even photographs of I've done 3 times, you know.
Right, right.
It's not a long process, but it does mean that you're constantly working. You know.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
I suppose different publishers have different ways, and
yeah. I think it
they're
almost...
very fussy. I find, you know. They're looking at every little...
Oh, yeah, every comma and, yeah. But I quite like that, actually.
Oh yeah, I need that.
So, yeah. I enjoyed it. I was quite surprised how much I enjoyed the editing process.
When they edit it, is it just to change the syntax and grammar and so on, or is it to make it more saleable?
It's to bring... It's lots of things. It's everything, actually. It's looking at the motivations of characters and if they're clear. Bringing out different themes that they think may be a little bit buried and need to be sort of brought to the forefront more. Looking at things like grammar as well and language. There's one thing that a lot of writers do, and I certainly did it, is that, and my editor calls it literary tics. And almost like a sort of verbal tic is where you'll use the same word and use it loads. You don't realise yourself, but you use it loads and loads and loads, and so it's good for picking up on things like that. So the editing, it's a whole process, it's everything. I would say story is very, very much about story.
So in our book club then, we're criticising the author for doing something. Maybe we should be criticising the editor for doing it.
It's the author's ultimate responsibility.
Yeah, it's that, I find it's that third reading when the letter comes and says, you know, this is your final responsibility. Anything you don't like now is your responsibility.
Yes, that's right.
Terrifying, really, when it's written on the word, but it is the author's responsibility.
Yeah, and I think that's right, actually, as well. You've got to sort of put your name to it and take responsibility for it, ultimately. Yeah. Now, leave the poor editors out. No, lots of people ask me that, and it never actually happened, but it was always in the back of my mind. Really? 3 times? Yes, I can imagine it's a horrible experience, and even for a couple of minutes.
They call him Boomerang, he's kept coming back.
That's a good one. Yeah. I've got a bit of a thing that I don't want to have too... my only one, I think, is I don't want to sort of splash out on expensive desks and flashy equipment and things like that. I don't know why. It's almost a superstition that I think if I do, then somehow I'll lose... I don't know why that is, actually. But I have recently bought a new computer because I was taking it to slight extremes. I was using a laptop that started spontaneously shutting down. And, you know, I thought, I can't go on like this, it's ridiculous. But that's one.
Yeah, do you type straight in, you don't write it and then type?
No, I'm very used to typing in now.
Yeah.
Occasionally, if I'm on trains, I travel a lot, so I write notes longhand and then type them up. Gosh, no. I edit so much, I can't imagine if I had to write longhand how I do that.
Was there ever a time when you thought, you came to a point in the novel where you thought, I don't know where this is going to go?
Oh, that's so interesting. Nobody's ever asked me that before.
Because sometimes when you read a book,
it's interesting.
I've read a book and I can't put it down for the past 3/4 quarter of the book, maybe half of the book.
Yeah,
And I come to a point and I think, oh, this is going on too much.
right.
It could have been cut down more, you know.
That's another role of the editor,
So I
actually.
lose
Yeah.
interest then.
Yeah, that's another role of the
That's the
editor, is to cut. And I think most books, well, all books, benefit from cutting, definitely, definitely.
A typical example of that was the golden finch. Yes, the golden finch.
Now that's interesting, because I've heard that Donna Tartt didn't have an editor.
Oh,
So I think that's,
Can't blame her.
whether that's true or not, I don't know, but that's what I've heard.
Sounds like
You know.
Right.
Kate, can I thank you very much for this? I can see that there are still probably questions burning in people's minds. If you're willing to stay for a few
Of
minutes
course,
and
yes.
talk to people individually, it'll give people an opportunity if they want to buy the book, and it'll give people out there an opportunity now to come in and look at the art and come
Of
and look
course,
at the
yeah.
book as well. So it's been a fantastic opportunity to hear you, and I can tell from all the questions and everything that's been going on how much people have enjoyed hearing your introduction, but also your response